Okay, so food pairing, right? It can sometimes feel, well, a little overwhelming.
Yeah,
Like there's so much information out there.
absolutely.
And, maybe you're not like a trained chef, so you're just kind of like,
Right.
I just want to know the basics.
Yeah,
So that's kind of what we're doing in this deep dive today.
for sure.
And we're looking at an interesting source. It's a podcast episode called How to Discuss Food Pairing in English.
Interesting source for a deep dive.
But I know you're probably like, well, I speak English already.
Yeah.
But it's really geared towards anyone who's interested in food.
Exactly.
And it has some really cool insights.
It does.
But one thing that I thought was really interesting that they pointed out is that English is actually like the global language when it comes to food.
Really? You think about it, it makes sense.
Yeah. So it's like...
Any menu you pick up anywhere,
Exactly.
it's probably going to be in English as well.
Yeah. So whether you're, talking to someone in Paris or Tokyo about food, you're probably going to be speaking English.
It's true.
So that's kind of cool, I thought.
It is pretty neat.
Okay, so you've convinced me food pairing is something worth exploring.
Yes.
But why should we care?
Oh.
Can't we all just eat what we like?
Oh, absolutely. Personal preference is king. But think of it this way. Understanding food pairing, it's like having this secret superpower
Oh, okay.
you can use to really elevate your dining experience.
Okay, what kind of superpowers are we talking about?
Well, for one, you can start to create dishes that are not just delicious, but also balanced and exciting.
Oh, balanced
Yep.
and exciting.
It's about understanding how all those different flavors and textures really work together.
Right.
How to combine them in a way that makes every ingredient just shine.
So it's not just about making food taste good, it's about making it taste interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's when things get really fun.
Right. And this source also mentions some other pretty cool benefits, like being able to, connect with other food lovers around the world.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Being able to talk about food pairing confidently,
Yeah.
it really opens up a whole world of, culinary conversations.
Yeah, like imagine impressing your friends at a dinner party.
Totally. Or confidently navigating, a really complex menu.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Or even, having a really engaging conversation with a chef about their choices.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Right.
Okay, so where do we even begin?
Right.
Like, what are the basic building blocks of food pairing?
That's a great question. And thankfully, our source here gives us a really good place to start.
Okay.
They provide a glossary of essential terms.
Wonderful.
We've got things like flavor profile, complementary versus contrasting flavors, aroma texture palette.
Right.
But let's start with a real showstopper.
Okay.
Umami, are you familiar with that one?
Honestly, not really. I know it's considered the fifth taste,
Right.
but that's about it.
Well, get ready for your mind to be blown. Umami is that deep, savory, almost meaty taste that adds just this incredible complexity and satisfaction to dishes.
Ooh. Yeah. So, like, what kind of foods are we talking about here? Give me some examples.
Think like a perfectly aged Parmesan cheese,
Okay.
a really rich and flavorful broth, or even like a perfectly roasted mushroom.
Okay.
That intense, satisfying flavor that's umami.
You've officially made me hungry.
Sorry.
No, that's good. That's good.
That's the goal. Okay, so now that we're starting to, get a handle on some of the vocabulary, how do we actually use these terms in conversation?
Okay.
Like, how do we sound like we know what we're talking about?
Well, this is where this podcast episode really shines.
Mm-hmm.
It provides some super useful phrases that you can kind of slip into any conversation about food.
Okay, great.
Things like, this wine pairing really brings out the subtle notes of where the creamy texture of this risotto contrasts beautifully with...
I love it. It's like a cheat sheet.
Exactly.
You're sounding like a culinary pro.
Precisely. But remember, it's not just about using fancy words. It's about understanding the ideas behind them.
Right. For example, one key concept that we need to grasp is that balancing flavors is like a culinary equation.
Okay, break it down for me.
It's about understanding how, seemingly opposite flavors like sweet and sour or spicy and creamy can actually complement each other and create this really harmonious whole.
So you're telling me that opposites attract even in the world of food?
Absolutely. Think about a classic pairing, like a rich, fatty steak with a bright, acidic chimichurri sauce.
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean.
Right.
Those contrasting flavors really do make the dish better.
Exactly. It's all about finding that sweet spot where contrasting elements actually create balance and enhance the whole dining experience.
This is making me think about an experience I had recently where I paired a really tart salad with a creamy pasta dish.
Okay, interesting.
It was a total gamble, but it worked. The acidity of the salad cut through the richness of the pasta, and it created this like amazingly balanced flavor experience.
That's a perfect example of how understanding these principles can help you make really interesting choices in the kitchen.
Right. And speaking of interesting choices, I was really intrigued by the podcast episode's discussion of cultural pairings.
Oh, yeah, me too.
This idea that different cuisines have their own unique flavor combinations that have evolved over centuries.
Fascinating.
It's like each culture has its own secret code for deliciousness.
Absolutely. And exploring these cultural pairings is a great way to really deepen your appreciation for global cuisines.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Indian cuisine. You think
Okay.
about all those spice blends. Like
Right.
each region has its own kind of signature mix.
Yeah.
And it's not just, throwing spices in there randomly.
Right.
They're carefully chosen to complement and balance each other, creating these really complex and comforting layers of flavor.
It's like a culinary symphony.
It really is.
And it's so cool how these cultural pairings can encourage us to, step outside our comfort zones and explore new flavor combinations.
Absolutely.
It's like a whole world of taste waiting to be discovered.
That's a great way to put it. It reminds us that food is about so much more than just, fuel. It's a powerful way to connect with different cultures and traditions.
Okay, so we've talked about why food pairing matters.
Right.
We've explored some key vocabulary.
Uh-huh.
We even dove into the world of cultural pairings.
Right.
But there's one element we haven't touched on yet, and I know our source brought it up.
Okay.
Texture.
Texture. It's often overlooked, but it's so crucial.
It is.
For a truly enjoyable meal.
I'm totally with you there. Like, think about a creamy risotto
Okay.
paired with crispy fried onions.
Yes.
Or a smooth soup with crunchy croutons.
Ooh, yeah.
That contrast in textures just adds a whole other dimension.
It really does. It's about creating the symphony of sensations in your mouth. It's
Yeah.
not just about how the food tastes, but how it feels as well.
And this podcast episode even gave us a really handy phrase for talking about texture.
Oh, yeah.
Something like the creamy texture of this soup contrasts nicely with the crunchy croutons.
I love that.
It's like they knew we needed a cheat sheet
They did.
for sounding like culinary connoisseurs.
Exactly. And that same principle of balance applies here, just like with flavors, contrasting textures can create a more harmonious and satisfying experience.
So if we connect all of this back to our listener, what does this deep dive into food pairing really mean for them?
That's a great question.
What's the takeaway?
Well, for starters, they now have the tools to not just eat well, but to talk about food in a more sophisticated way.
Ooh, I like that.
They can confidently discuss flavor profiles, wine pairings, even cultural traditions.
They can walk into any restaurant or dinner party and feel like they can hold their own in a conversation about food.
Exactly. But more importantly, they now have a much deeper understanding of how all these elements work together to create truly memorable meals.
And that understanding can empower them to, experiment in the kitchen, try new things, maybe even discover their own unique culinary style.
It's about transforming their relationship with food from something purely functional to something that's both enjoyable and enriching.
I love that. But before we wrap up, I want to leave our listener with something to ponder, something to spark their culinary curiosity.
Oh, food for thought.
Exactly. The podcast episode really emphasized the importance of texture. So here's the question. What are some unexpected textures you could experiment with in your next meal?
That's a great challenge. I think we often get stuck in a rut with, just crunchy and creamy.
Right.
What about something sticky or chewy or even bubbly?
Ooh, bubbly. You're speaking my language. Maybe some sparkling wine paired with, a crispy fried oyster.
Ooh, interesting.
Okay, now I'm officially hungry.
There you go. See, this knowledge is already sparking your creativity.
It totally is. And that's what I love about these deep dives. They're not just about learning new information.
Right.
They're about inspiring you to explore new possibilities.
So to our listener, we encourage you to keep exploring the world of food pairing.
Seek out food blogs.
Right.
Watch cooking shows.
Yes.
Strike up conversations with chefs. Get adventurous in the kitchen.
The more you learn, the more you'll realize just how many possibilities there are.
And who knows, maybe you'll even discover your own signature dish along the way.
That's the magic of food pairing.
I couldn't agree more. And on that note, I think I'm going to head to the kitchen and see what kind of deliciousness I can whip up.
That sounds like a great plan. Remember, you don't have to be a professional chef
Right.
to appreciate good food.
This deep dive wasn't about turning you into a culinary expert overnight.
It was about giving you the tools and the confidence to explore food in a new way.
And to have fun with it, don't be afraid to experiment, to break the rules, to trust your own taste buds.
Exactly. After all, the best food pairings are often the ones that surprise us.
And who knows, maybe you'll stumble upon the next big culinary
The
trend.
possibilities are endless, so go forth and create.
Every meal is a chance for a delicious adventure.
I love that.
That's the perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of food pairing. We hope you learned something new, and more importantly, that you feel inspired to explore the endless possibilities of flavor.
Until next time, happy eating.
And even if, sometimes your culinary experiments, they don't work out.
Right.
They don't turn into these masterpieces.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's part of the fun.
Exactly. You learn something new every time.
Right.
And who knows, those failures might lead you to, your next big culinary breakthrough.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's like that saying, the only way to avoid making mistakes is to avoid doing anything at all.
Right.
And in the world of food, that would be a huge shame.
It would be. So to our listener, as we wrap up this deep dive into food pairing,
Yeah.
we really encourage you to embrace the journey.
Yes.
Don't be afraid to play with flavors, experiment with textures,
Right.
and most importantly, have fun.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, food is about so much more than just, keeping us alive.
It really is. It's about connecting with people.
Yeah.
It's about creativity. It's about enjoyment.
Yeah. It's about sharing a meal with people you love.
Yes.
Discovering new cultures through their cuisine.
Absolutely.
Expressing yourself through cooking.
It's an art form.
And who knows, maybe this deep dive has sparked something in you that you didn't even know was there.
I hope so.
Maybe you'll start a food blog or, host dinner parties or even go to culinary school.
The possibilities are endless.
They really are. We hope you'll join us next time as we continue to explore this amazing world of food.
Yes, all of its delicious secrets.
Until then, happy cooking and bon appetit.